Ladies and gentlemen, let me start with a powerful truth. The world is shifting, and America knows it. For decades, the world order was written by one voice, one power, one narrative. But today, a new story is unfolding. It is the story of a nation that has risen from centuries of struggle, a nation that has embraced its ancient wisdom while racing toward a future of innovation, India. And here's the hidden truth. America doesn't fear India because of weapons or armies or missiles. America fears India's rise because of something far more powerful, the strength of its spirit, the power of its people, and the unstoppable force of its ideas. Think about it. When a young engineer in Bangalore builds the next breakthrough in technology, when a farmer in Punjab feeds not just his village but contributes to global markets, when an Indian child dares to dream bigger than their circumstances, that is power. Power that cannot be controlled by sanctions, by politics, or by borders. America fears India's rise because it is not just about economics, it is about influence. It is about the way India is teaching the world that leadership can come from humility, that progress can be rooted in spirituality, that modern strength can walk hand in hand with ancient wisdom. Ladies and gentlemen, the real fear is this. India is not following America's path. It is creating its own, a path where unity speaks louder than division, where culture inspires innovation, where resilience turns every setback into a new beginning. The world is watching, and America knows that when India rises, it does not rise alone. It lifts others with it. That is what truly shakes the old order, the vision of a nation that does not dominate, but liberates, that does not dictate, but demonstrates. So remember this hidden truth. America's fear is not of India's power. It is of India's example, because an example is unstoppable. An example cannot be destroyed. An example lives in every heart that dares to believe that the future belongs not to the strongest, but to the most resilient, the most united, and the most visionary. America does not fear India because of its military might, its missiles, or its armies, but because of something far deeper, more powerful, and more enduring, the spirit of its people, the brilliance of its ideas, and the resilience embedded in its culture. Weapons can be matched, armies can be confronted, but the collective energy of 1 billion determined minds cannot be contained. That is where the true fear lies. When you look at India, you are not just looking at a country, you are looking at a force of human potential that is rewriting the meaning of power in the modern world. For too long, global power was measured in terms of nuclear stockpiles or economic sanctions, but India is redefining it by showing that influence is born from innovation, from creativity, and from a people's ability to rise against the odds. This is what shakes America, because power built on spirit and ideas cannot be subdued by political strategies or military dominance. India's story is not one of sudden wealth or overnight transformation. It is the story of generations who endured poverty, invasions, colonization, and countless challenges, yet continued to hold on to their dreams. This spirit of survival has now turned into a spirit of ambition. Across every corner of the world, you will find Indian scientists leading groundbreaking research, Indian entrepreneurs shaping the digital economy, Indian doctors healing lives, and Indian thinkers influencing global debates. These are not isolated examples. They are evidence of a national character that thrives on resilience and reinvention. That is the kind of power America fears, because it is not dependent on one leader, one policy, or one moment. It is embedded in the DNA of millions of people. Ideas, too, are India's greatest weapon. From yoga and meditation that heal the mind and body to technology that fuels the next wave of global progress, India exports more than products. It exports visions of how humanity can live better, think deeper, and rise higher. And unlike weapons, ideas cannot be destroyed. They travel across borders, inspire generations, and outlive empires. America, used to shaping narratives, now sees India's voice growing louder on the global stage. That voice is not aggressive, but it is confident, and confidence rooted in truth is far more powerful than fear rooted in dominance. The real fear, therefore, is not India's rise in numbers, but its rise in influence. A nation whose people carry an unshakable spirit and whose ideas are reshaping the world represents a kind of power that cannot be controlled. India's rise is not simply the result of economic growth or technological advancement. It is the seamless blending of ancient wisdom with modern innovation that makes the nation unique on the world stage. This combination creates a form of power that cannot be replicated by traditional superpowers because it is rooted in something timeless. While many nations race ahead by focusing solely on industry, finance, or military expansion, India carries within it a deep cultural heritage that provides balance, direction, and purpose to its progress. Its ancient philosophies teach resilience, mindfulness, and harmony, values that give strength in times of adversity and clarity in moments of uncertainty. These teachings do not remain confined to temples, scriptures, or history books. They manifest in the way India approaches modern challenges, whether in science, diplomacy, or global leadership. In the field of technology, India has emerged as a global hub of innovation, with its engineers, entrepreneurs, and scientists shaping the digital world and pushing the boundaries of possibility. Yet what makes this innovation distinct is the guiding influence of ancient principles that remind people of responsibility, ethics, and human well-being. When India builds software, launches satellites, or develops medicine, the work is not driven by conquest or domination, but by the vision of service and contribution to humanity. That mindset stems from the deep spiritual roots that teach the importance of Dharma, of right action, and of aligning progress with higher purpose. It is this union of the old and the new that gives India a moral edge, and it is precisely this moral edge that unsettles powers like America, which often rely on raw competition and dominance. India demonstrates that true progress does not require abandoning one's past. Instead, it requires transforming heritage into a foundation for future growth. Its universities produce some of the world's finest minds in technology and science, while its traditions continue to influence wellness, philosophy, and human development globally. The world looks to India not only for technical solutions, but also for wisdom that helps people find meaning in their lives. That rare ability to provide both innovation and inspiration makes India's rise different from others. As America watches this blend take shape, it recognizes that it cannot easily replicate such a formula. Technology can be copied, markets can be controlled, but the soul of a civilization that has thrived for thousands of years while adapting to the future cannot be imitated. This is why India's rise carries a depth that is both admired and feared. It represents not just a nation advancing in modern terms, but a civilization proving that ancient wisdom and modern innovation together can create a power greater than either could achieve alone. True power does not only reside in the hands of governments, armies, or corporations, it lives in the everyday contributions of ordinary people whose collective energy shapes the destiny of a nation. In India, this power is visible in the engineer who stays up late coding the next big innovation, in the farmer who wakes before sunrise to cultivate the land that feeds millions, and in the child who dares to dream beyond limitations placed upon them. Each of these individuals represents a piece of the vast mosaic that is India's strength. And when these pieces come together, they form a force greater than any political strategy or military arsenal. America understands this, and it is one of the reasons it views India's rise with a mix of admiration and unease. The Indian engineer is not just a worker in the global economy, but a creator of solutions that change how the world functions. From building cutting-edge software and advancing artificial intelligence to contributing to space exploration, these innovators carry India's vision to every corner of the globe. Their brilliance challenges the monopoly of Western technological dominance and proves that creativity and progress are not limited to a single nation. Behind every invention lies not only technical skill, but also resilience, the determination to succeed despite limited resources or global barriers. That resilience is what America sees and fears because it cannot be bought or controlled. Equally powerful is the farmer in rural India who embodies both tradition and progress. Despite challenges such as unpredictable weather and economic pressure, farmers continue to sustain the foundation of the country while adapting to modern methods of cultivation. They represent the spirit of self-reliance and survival that has always defined India. This ability to feed its people and still contribute to global markets reflects an inner strength that makes India less vulnerable to external pressure. Agriculture, often overlooked in the conversation of power, becomes a quiet yet undeniable pillar of India's rise. And then there is the child, the symbol of possibility. In classrooms across villages and cities, millions of young Indians are preparing to enter a future that demands vision, skill, and courage. Each child who dreams of becoming a scientist, doctor, leader, or entrepreneur carries within them the seeds of transformation. Their collective ambition forms a wave of unstoppable momentum, ensuring that India's growth is not temporary, but generational. What ties all of these individuals together is the spirit of ordinary people achieving extraordinary things. Their stories reveal that power is not only about resources or status, but about resilience, determination, and the courage to rise against challenges. It is this silent, persistent strength of India's everyday citizens that unsettles America because it represents a kind of power that cannot be contained or diminished. India is not following the footsteps of any other nation, nor is it trying to replicate the American model of progress. Instead, it is carving out its own unique path, one that blends tradition with innovation, humility with confidence, and resilience with ambition. This independent trajectory is what makes India's rise distinctive, because it refuses to be confined by the frameworks designed by others. While many countries have measured success by how closely they mirror Western systems, India has chosen to define success on its own terms. This choice reflects both courage and vision, and it unsettles those who are used to seeing the world operate according to their blueprint. America for decades has set the standard for economic systems, political influence, and cultural dominance, expecting other nations to adopt similar paths if they wish to succeed. Yet India's journey tells a different story. It is a story of a nation that does not need to abandon its values to modernize, nor silence its culture to compete globally. India demonstrates that it is possible to preserve one's identity while stepping boldly into the future. Its democracy, though noisy and diverse, reflects the voices of 1 billion people, and its development model prioritizes both economic growth and social upliftment. This approach may not fit neatly into the Western mold, but it is precisely that difference that makes India stronger and more authentic. On the world stage, India's independent voice is becoming louder and more respected. Whether in climate negotiations, global trade discussions, or peace efforts, India is not echoing the views of powerful blocs, but presenting its own perspective shaped by its history and values. This confidence shows the world that leadership does not require imitation. It requires conviction. America, used to being the center of global influence, now sees a nation stepping forward without seeking its approval. And that shift creates both respect and unease. At home, India's development model reflects the same independence. By investing in digital infrastructure, renewable energy, and education, it is creating systems that work for its own people rather than copying solutions from elsewhere. This self-driven progress demonstrates a sovereignty of thought that goes beyond political freedom. It tells the world that India is not here to follow, it is here to lead in its own way. What truly makes this path powerful is the fact that it emerges from authenticity. India's rise is not about becoming a second version of any other country, but about becoming the best version of itself. This is why its example carries weight across continents, and this is why it cannot be easily predicted or controlled by those who once dominated the global order. India's rise carries with it a quality that unsettles traditional powers. It does not rise to dominate, but to inspire. Unlike nations that have historically equated power with control, India shows that leadership can take the form of lifting others, of creating partnerships, and of building trust rather than fear. This is not weakness, but a different kind of strength, a strength that multiplies rather than divides. When India invests in global health, shares technology with developing nations, or extends humanitarian aid, it demonstrates that progress can be shared. Such actions create bonds that no military alliance can match because they are rooted in empathy and vision. America, which has often been viewed as a nation that uses its influence to dictate, finds itself watching a new model of power emerge, one that threatens to rewrite the rules of leadership. This ability to uplift others is not accidental. It stems from India's history and culture. For centuries, India has believed in the philosophy of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. The world is one family. This belief transforms its diplomacy and its approach to global relations. Rather than seeking dominance, India seeks connection. When Indian doctors serve in remote corners of Africa, when Indian peacekeepers risk their lives in conflict zones, when India provides vaccines to countries that cannot afford them, the world takes note. These acts are not just gestures of kindness. They are demonstrations of a new kind of power that wins hearts before it wins influence. Such influence cannot be forced or bought, and that is precisely why it carries weight. Even in areas of science and technology, India chooses to share knowledge rather than hoard it. Initiatives in space exploration, digital connectivity, and renewable energy are often structured in ways that allow other nations to benefit. By offering affordable solutions to global problems, India sets itself apart from powers that leverage technology primarily for control or profit. This generosity does not diminish India's position. It strengthens it by creating a network of allies and admirers who see India as a trustworthy leader. America sees this unfolding and realizes that such leadership undermines the old formula of dominance. The true essence of India's rise lies in this ability to lead by example. It does not impose its way on others, but allows its progress to speak for itself. Nations that partner with India do so not out of compulsion, but out of respect and admiration. That respect is more enduring than fear, and it is what allows India to steadily expand its influence across continents. America fears this, not because it is hostile, but because it is transformative, because a model of leadership rooted in inspiration and service cannot be easily challenged or dismantled. The hidden truth behind America's fear of India's rise lies not in military competition or economic rivalry, but in something far more profound: India's example. An example has the power to outlast empires, to inspire generations, and to transform societies without firing a single shot. India shows the world that a nation can endure centuries of hardship, emerge from colonial rule, face enormous challenges, and still rise to a position of global influence by relying on resilience, vision, and unity. This is a story that resonates beyond borders because it offers hope to nations that feel overshadowed or suppressed. It proves that greatness does not belong only to those with wealth or weapons, but to those who have the courage to persevere. America, which has long defined itself as the model of progress, now sees another model emerging, one that challenges its narrative not through confrontation, but through inspiration. India's example is powerful because it demonstrates balance. It is a nation that embraces rapid technological growth while holding on to timeless traditions. It is a society that thrives on diversity, where countless languages, religions, and cultures coexist within a single democratic framework. This coexistence is messy at times, yet it reflects a truth the world cannot ignore. Strength does not come from uniformity. It comes from unity in diversity. Such a lesson carries weight in a world fractured by division, and it makes India's rise more than just a regional achievement. It becomes a global message, one that unsettles powers like America that have often used division as a tool of control. Another reason India's example is so influential is because it shows that progress can be both inclusive and self-defined. India does not need to mimic Western models to succeed. It has crafted its own path by investing in digital infrastructure, education, renewable energy, and cultural diplomacy. It demonstrates that a developing nation can transform itself on its own terms. This inspires countries across Asia, Africa, and Latin America, many of which see India as proof that their futures are not limited by Western blueprints. That influence cannot be bought or silenced, and it represents a shift in the balance of global power. What makes this example truly unstoppable is its foundation in spirit rather than force. Military strength can be challenged, economic growth can be slowed, but the story of a nation that rises against all odds cannot be erased. America fears India not because of what it possesses, but because of what it represents. Representation becomes influence. Influence becomes inspiration, and inspiration becomes a force that cannot be contained. India's rise, therefore, is more than a change in power. It is a change in possibility, and that is what shakes the old order to its core.